Welcome to another edition of Book Look. I'm your host, Jennifer Anderson. Joining us today is author Jena Ball, who created the CritterKin series. Miss Ball joined us today at Pine Valley Elementary for the world launch of her latest book, The Not Perfect Hat Club. Today she'll be talking about the Not Perfect Hat Club and about ways that parents can encourage a love of reading in their children and ways that children can also create their own books. So stay tuned.
Jack London endured more hardships at the age of 21 than most people experience in a lifetime. His struggles developed in him sympathy for the working class and provided inspiration for his career as a writer. In 1903, he earned national fame when he published the popular novel The Call of the Wild. This background in literature has been brought to you by New Hanover County Schools on the Learning Network of the Cape Fear.
Welcome back. Today we have author Jena Ball as our guest on Book Look. Today you had your global launch of the Not Perfect Hat Club at Pine Valley Elementary in Wilmington, North Carolina.
So excited. Yes, it was wonderful.
And you Skyped and talked to children globally about your new book.
Yes, it was the most fantastic thing. I think we had 16 classes from 7 countries today with us, which was amazing.
And the countries, United States.
Okay, so we had United States, Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, UK, Canada, and Greece.
Wow.
So seven countries.
Wonderful.
Yeah, pretty good, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the love of reading goes worldwide.
It does, yes.
Well, can you talk to us a little bit about your book series, the CritterKin series, and how you came up with that idea?
So I was actually, the whole thing started at the SPCA in Wake County, North Carolina, and I was volunteering and watching kids interact with animals, and I thought, this is amazing what the animals do. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about it, and suddenly, and it just popped into my head, CritterKin. And critter is an animal, kin means family, and I thought, animal, family, that's it. But then, of course, what did I want to write about? And I realized that as a teacher, we have a lot of social emotional issues that we could tackle with our kids in a positive way, as opposed to saying, like, I don't think it's very effective to say to you, don't bully somebody. But if you teach a kid to care about others and feel empathic and understand why they're the way they are, then they're much less likely to bully, right?
Yes.
So that was sort of the beginning thoughts. And the other thing was that I noticed that kids do much better with animal stories, because animals are not threatening. They have this kind of innate love of them. And of course a dog will come up and, oh, I'm so happy to see you. So it's kind of hard not to love a dog, right? And so I thought, well, I'm going to write these stories from the perspective of a dog, not knowing all the reasons I shouldn't, this anthropomorphizing and all that kind of thing. But I thought, this is going to be fun. And that was the main thing for me. I wanted to write something fun.
Well, the children today really enjoyed hearing about the critters in your books.
So much fun. We had such a good time.
Now, in your series, how many animals do you write about?
Well, there are 8 mutts, and I chose mutts especially because the whole notion of being purebred, meaning perfect, trying to have a perfect standard, is ridiculous, number one. But number two, mutts, which are mixtures of dogs, have all different kinds of qualities and traits and tend to be healthier and nicer dogs. So I thought, we're all a bunch of mutts at this point in the world. Who's a purebred person, right? And so I chose dogs that have special qualities that I wanted to work on with the kids. So there's a special needs dog. There's a black, and Black was very conscious, a black pit bull who is misunderstood because a lot of people think pit bulls are mean and nasty. There's Newton, who's the not perfect therapy dog. There's Mariah, who's got she's got an attitude adjustment she needs. She just thinks she's the hot, And every character has something about them that we want kids to understand.
Right.
You know?
And they all seem very relatable in today's society.
And they're all, yes, exactly. That's exactly it. So that's what I was trying to do, was tackle social problems, issues that all kids have to work on. You know, you have to be taught to be nice to other kids. You know, you have to play nice. That doesn't work. But if you see a character, that's the wonderful thing about a book. When you see a story unfold and you see how other people get to work it out, that teaches you. So it's an opportunity to learn by example. So that was sort of my goal, but mostly I wanted to tell fun stories. I mean, at heart, I'm a storyteller, and I just love good stories. So.
Well, I think you've succeeded.
Thank you. I hope so. So far, I've written 4 of them, and I have the 5th one almost ready to go.
And you're also an illustrator, is that correct?
This is a wonderful story, and my hat goes off to my business partner, because I studied advertising illustration as a junior in college, and I got so disappointed with the competitiveness, I dropped out and went back and got journalism. So I didn't draw for a very, very long time, and I was sketching out ideas for one of the books, and he said, "Who drew that?" And I said, "I did." And he said, "You can draw?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess." But I mean, this was on a lined piece of paper, and it was, to me, kind of ugly. He says, "You know, you have to illustrate these books." And I said, "No." He said, "Yes." And you don't say no to Marty if he's right. That's my business partner. And so, I mean, he was the one that convinced me to go ahead and try. And I've had a blast.
And that's a really good example to share with children.
Yes.
Because it shows that you may not think you're perfect.
That's so true.
But to other people in the world, they see your strengths.
Yes. And you know what? I won't say it was bad, but I wasn't as good as I am now. I've gotten better over time. So that's another thing to learn is, you know, practice, you know, get better. Yes. That's one of my main themes here.
Wonderful. Well, we brought some of your books.
Yes.
And you have 4 that you've completed in the series so far.
Do.
And the first one, I believe,
is Poco a Poco. Yeah, this one.
Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Can I? Because I love this one. Because I had no intention of writing it. We were in conversations with the IFAW, which is the International Fund for Animal Welfare, and they were just launching a program about cats, dogs, and us to teach kids about, you know, and they said, "Would you consider doing something with us? You know, we'll promote the book if you will write it." And I was thinking about this one, you know, and I had no idea really what I wanted to write about. And they said, "Well, what about this situation we had in Mexico?" And I said, "Okay, what?" And they said, people were dumping dogs at the garbage dump. And of course, my feeling was, you know, how could you?
Right.
You know, but it turns out, now that I know about it, that the people were so poor, they couldn't, you know, they just couldn't take care of their dogs. So this is the story of how that got resolved. And the most unlikely people are the heroes. There are 4 elderly men who were homeless, living in the dump with the dogs. They saved them.
Wow.
And the IFAW got them jobs at the local Humane Society. They came in and got them vaccinated and took care of them. But the story is just, I mean, it's so heartwarming. You know, you go from being, you know, discarded, basically, to finding a forever home and having, you know, people love you.
Right.
Yeah, so that was the very first one. It's still kind of very close to my heart because it's based on a true story, and I just love that the people you wouldn't think would have the biggest hearts did.
Right. And your next book was the CritterKin tale on Meet the Mutts?
Meet the Mutts. Meet the Mutts. I knew I needed to write it because nobody knew what the dogs were. So each one, it's kind of a little background on each one with a little story connected. So each of the 8 dogs gets introduced so you know who you're dealing with. Yeah.
And then for your 3rd book?
This book has been the sleeper of the bunch so far. So it's about a black pit bull who is misunderstood, and people think that he's mean and vicious and everything. And he's befriended by a little girl who's kind of, she's just different. I won't label her. She's a little bit different. And so they're both misunderstood. And together they make friends, and they go on these adventures that end up teaching the people in the town that it's okay to be different, and that sometimes you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. So the underlying theme is bullying, you know, and people using prejudice and fear to you know, say you must be like this. But in the end, it turns out really well because everybody in the town learns that this dog is very special, and so is the little girl.
Wonderful. It's great to use literature to help teach these character traits to children.
Yes, because they get to see it happen. And I will say this, because I'm proud of this too. This book has been used nationally now as a kindness program in whole districts. And what the kids do is they read it, they make a kindness quilt, and then they do a play based on the last chapter. And so when they get to act out the characters and actually be the one that's being, bullied or judged, they really get it. Because it's one thing to read about it even, but when somebody is standing in front of you playing the bad guy and saying, "You're ugly and we don't like you," they get it.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I just love it. And that wasn't my idea. That was the kids' idea.
Well, this is very interesting. We need to take a short break, but
Okay.
we'll be right back
Sure.
with Miss Jena Ball.
Fantastic.
Oh my God!
Who was president? The years 1981 to 1989. He was the oldest man ever elected president. He survived an assassination attempt. And he negotiated an agreement with Russia that eliminated intermediate-range nuclear missiles. If you guessed Ronald Reagan, you're right. He was the 40th president of the United States. This presidential pop quiz has been brought to you by New Hanover County Schools on the Learning Network, Time Warner Cable Channel 5.
Welcome back. Today we have guest Jena Ball, author of the CritterKin series. Jena, thanks again for joining us.
You're so welcome.
You wrote this wonderful book, The Not So Perfect Hat Club.
Yep,
And it's hot off the presses.
it is. Brand new.
Would you be able to share a little bit of your book with our audience?
I would love to. So the Not Perfect Hat Club is all about all of us being not perfect. And the excerpt I'd like to read for you is "People are like snowflakes." I suppose you're wondering what all these lessons have to do with the Not Perfect Hat Club. That's because you haven't met the two most important characters in my story, Jabber and Kylie. To understand Jabber and Kylie, you have to know about snowflakes. As soon as I learned to relax and not worry about signals, Carl began talking to me about frozen water. It was the middle of winter and very cold, but Carl was still on his mini break and liked to take a long walk every day. He would put on his big fat overcoat, wrap a scarf around his neck, and pull a hat down over his ears. Then he'd take our leashes, clip them onto our collars, and ask us, "Ready to hit the road, guys?" On the day of the snowflake talk, the little pieces of frozen water had just begun to fall when we left the house. We walked down the driveway and turned right, heading towards the neighborhood park. "Do you see these snowflakes?" Carl asked, looking up at the sky and holding out his hand. I wondered if Carl thought I was blind. The cold white flakes were everywhere, landing on my eyelashes and stinging my nose. "All the snowflakes are falling in the same direction," Carl continued. "They are all going to the same place, but every snowflake is different, and every snowflake will take a different path. Do you understand?" "What's he going on about now?" said Midge. "Beats me," I said, wagging my tail to show I was listening. "What I mean, Newton," Carl said, speaking in a slow, quiet voice, "is that people are like snowflakes. Each one is different. Each one has to find his or her way." Carl stopped talking and we walked in silence for a few minutes. The only sounds were the crunch, crunch, crunch of Carl's boots in the snow and Midge's excited sniffing. "Newton, it's true for dogs too," Carl added. "There's only one Newton and only one Midge." Only one Newton. Carl's words were beginning to sink in and my head was full of questions. Suddenly I had to stop and think. I sat down in the snow and looked up at this strange gray-haired person who had rescued me from catastrophe. Only one Newton. Carl walked to the end of my leash before he realized I'd stopped. "What's going on, Newton?" he asked, walking back. He waited patiently as I repeated his words to myself. Only one Newton and only one Midge. Each one has to find his or her way. "So maybe I'm not a failure after all," I said. "You're a wonderful dog, Newton," Carl said, bending to rub my ears. "But my people left me at the Animal Control Center." The memory still made me very sad. You weren't bad, you just didn't have the right job, Carl said. Your people wanted you to do a job you couldn't do. That's not your fault. But now you have a job with me, and that makes me very happy. Me too, I agreed, offering him my paw. Let's shake to a long and wonderful partnership, Carl said. Tomorrow, you and I go back to work, and I'll introduce you to 2 of my snowflake kids.
Wonderful.
That's the bare bones of the story.
Wonderful. Well, I love how your books teach so much within the words on the page.
Yeah. Well, I found that if you can be descriptive and really bring people with details into the story, then they can hear the crunch, crunch, crunch and feel the wet snow, and then they really feel like they're there.
Right. And so many children probably feel just like our main character,
I think
that
so.
they're not good enough.
That's right.
But I love how this shows that, hey, we are individuals. Each one of us has our own job, our own unique purpose in life.
So true. And if parents could just communicate that to their kids, it doesn't matter what you test, it matters who you are. And I'm interested in who you are and what you'll become.
And that point's really important, because reading a book is more than just reading the words on the page and looking at the pictures. It's also discussions about the content of the book.
Yes.
And your books are full of content.
I really hope that parents engage with their kids that way. My mother was endlessly patient with me. She read to me every day, but I would lie in my room after school and yell words to her. Mom, what does this mean? She'd stop whatever she was doing and help me, because she fed that love of learning in me.
Right. And reading is one of the best ways to learn vocabulary words as well.
Yes. I try to do repetition in the books, so the kids can repeat after me, but also hear the words again and again and again. It works really well for ESL learners too. Yeah.
And I know some children may think, read a book one time, that's enough.
Yeah.
It's not really enough.
No.
Good books you want to read over and over, and you gain something new each time you read them.
Yes, and that's the mark of a good book. I had a reviewer say that I asked him to review it, he's an educator. He said, I read it once, and I loved it. He said, but I read it 3 more times with my son, because he wanted to hear it again. And I thought that was the best compliment I've ever had,
Well, I know that the students I work with loved listening to your book.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, do you have any other tips for parents about how to instill that joy and love of reading in their children?
I think that parents too often think that that their kids should read classics. They should read this, they should read that. If you can find what turns your kid on to reading, do it, for goodness sakes, and then get into it with them. I mean, I read endlessly with my niece, and the thing she loved most was having me make the characters have different sounds and voices, and then she would play part of the part, and she would take one of the characters and act it out with me. So any way you can bring it alive is fabulous. Some kids are also very, they don't do well with words, but they do well with sound, or they do well with pictures. So I have kids often draw or record things with their voice, and parents have all of that available to them now, so let your kid learn how to read how he or she needs to learn, because it'll come. As soon as they start to love it, the stories are inherent in us. We need to tell stories. Kids will find their way.
And it would be awesome if some of the children started writing their own books.
Oh, gosh. You saw me today. I asked them, I said, how many of you want to write stories? Everybody. Because everybody loves a good story. How many of you want to illustrate? Of course. And this is all before somebody tells them they can't do it.
Right.
If somebody doesn't tell you you can't do it, you'll assume you can. Well, let's get behind them.
And all it takes is a few pieces of paper, maybe cut them in half, staple them together, and you have a book.
Yes, you do. The other thing that's happened is, I don't know if you know about this technology, but it's very easy now to take something the kids have written and actually make it into a real book.
Right.
And it's cheap.
Well, hold on to that idea.
Okay.
We need to take another break, and then we'll be back with more with author Jena Ball.
Okay.
I decide who I'll be.
I do.
I decide what I wear.
That's who I am.
I'm not you. I'm not you.
I'm not you. And you're not me.
You can get under my skin.
But you'll never get inside.
I have the right to be wrong. I'm positive.
I have the power to be who I want to be.
I choose
not to smoke.
I decide
Not to chew.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
And we're back with author Jena Ball of the CritterKin series.
Yes.
Before our break, we were talking about ways that children can make their own books and be an author.
Yes.
Now, I talked about using just paper, stapled paper,
Right.
and drawing and writing and creating a book.
Yeah.
What are some other ways they can do that?
Well, digital technology has just taken off, and so there are many apps now that allow that sort of thing. But the two that I would recommend are Storyboard It. And that lets you take little cartoons and plop them into a storyboard and then write, and then it puts it together for you as a little book. Or, if you want to get a little more fancy, Book Creator allows you to just actually type in and then put in the page numbers and everything, and then it'll open it in iBooks.
Really?
Yeah, so it doesn't, it's just fabulous.
Wow.
I know, you wouldn't think, but it's
I know.
really, it's
Technology
easy.
is really making being an author much easier these days.
And I can tell you a really cheap trick.
Okay.
If you take a PDF, you know what a PDF is?
Yes.
You can import it into your iPad, it'll open it in iBook. So it looks like a book anyway.
Mm-hmm. Great
It's
idea.
a great way to just celebrate your kids, I love it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, the title of your book is The Not Perfect Hat Club.
Yes, it is.
The Not Perfect Hat Club. Can you explain that a little bit?
I think we covered the not perfect piece, and we covered the hat piece, which I have forgotten to put on, so pardon me for a moment. So we got that, but the club piece came out of the story, but also the idea that we could start to get kids to come together to celebrate ways that they're wonderful and unique without having to be perfect. So what we're hoping to do with the global launch is start Not Perfect Hat Clubs across the United States and Canada and Australia, and get these kids together, so they actually get to talk to each other and create things that would go in their clubhouse. So if I said, we have a Not Perfect Hat Club, what would you want to put in it?
Well,
I know.
I definitely want a Not Perfect hat.
Everybody, we have this great hat tree on the wall, and with pegs, you put the hats on. But we've also created a little shelf space where kids can make their own books, like you were talking about, cutting them out and putting them on the shelf. We asked them to take a window and look out the window. What would you want to see out your window? What would you like your world to be? So anyway, we'll see what the kids come up
And
with.
with people from all over the world, I'm sure you have so many different ideas of what's outside the window.
What's outside the window and what's inside. The Japanese students, a lot of them, have you been in a Japanese home? They have bamboo tatami mats, and their walls are made of paper. And so their idea of a room is very different from our idea of a room, and I'd forgotten about that. So it's just fascinating. I'm learning so much from the kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
We always learn from
Always.
the kids. Way
Always.
more than we ever imagined we could.
I always want to know what they're going to do with my books, because it's always something that I've never thought of.
Do you have plans for writing more books in the future?
Yes. There are at least four more coming, because there are 4 more dogs in the pack.
Any idea what your next title will be?
Doxy the Doggone Dirty Digger, and he's a little rat terrier that can't stop digging. He's kind of OCD, but the story is all about how if you find a job that you can do that takes advantage of what you're good at, he's really good at digging. So we put him to work as a farmer or an archaeologist or something. He's fine, So he's a hoot. Yeah.
Wow, I bet he has a great bone collection
Yes,
buried
he
somewhere
does.
out
He's
there.
Terrible. He's terrible. He buries everything. But I'll wait till you read the book to see what you think of it. But he's got all sorts of things going on. I just love him.
And is there a way for children who have read your books to get together online?
That is coming. We're going to do the Not Perfect Hat Club Blog It, which is a global initiative where kids can get together from all over the world to do just that, to meet and talk and share and do Skype, live visits. Right now there are 91 classes from 12 countries. And so the thing to do is go to NPHC Blog It, and then sign up and you can be part of it.
Wonderful. And they can do that from home with their parents?
Yes, they could do that from home with their parents.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's been wonderful learning all about your books.
Yes.
Ways that children can make their own books at home.
Yes.
And just ways to get more excited about reading.
Reading in general. Let's get them reading. I'm right there with you.
Well, don't go away. We have more in just a moment.
We can all be energy savers. It's easy. Turn off lights. Use energy-saving light bulbs. And turn off electronics and appliances when not in use. Make a change and we can really fly. Learn more at energy.gov/kids.
I hope you enjoyed this month's edition of Book Look. If you would like to learn more about author Jena Ball and her books, you can go to www.CritterKin.com. Join us next month for an all-new edition of Book Look. Thank you.